Joe Biden asserts that Ukraine must end its conflict before joining NATO. U.S. President Joe Biden, who is scheduled to attend an important NATO meeting this week, said in an interview before he left that Ukraine was not ready to join the alliance together and suggested that the war with Russia must end before the invitation could be issued. Has been released to the market. In an interview with CNN on July 9, the day Biden left our country to go to Europe, he said that it is too early for Ukraine to join cooperation and that America and NATO allies will continue provide the necessary weapons to prevent the attack without the Russian attack. Biden previously spoke about a week-long trip that began in London before heading to Vilnius, Lithuania, for a NATO meeting on July 11 to 12, before heading to Finland to meet the leader of NATO's newest member. During the war, I don't think there was a consensus within NATO on whether Ukraine would be part of the NATO family anymore, Biden told CNN. For example, if you do, well, you know, so I said, we made a commitment to every inch of NATO territory, a commitment we didn't make. It is war with Russia. Biden said that he spoke regularly with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky about the NATO situation, and confirmed that Washington will support Ukraine as it defends against Russian aggression. In an extensive interview with ABC News in Kyiv on July 9, Zelensky added that the Kremlin would never give any piece of land to Russia, including Crimea, which it illegally annexed to the Kremlin in 2014. Didn't objection to Washington. The Post report forced Russian President Vladimir Putin to participate in negotiations, as Ukrainian officials told CIA Director William Burns during a recent visit to Kyiv, that the current attack was aimed at closing off Crimea and beyond. Okay. Putin will most likely have to find a dialogue with the developed world, unlike before the full intervention, because he will be weak. Later, on July 9, Biden met with the Turkish president, who said in a speech by Recep Tayyip Erdogan that they were discussing Sweden's NATO campaign anti-terrorism law, but that step doesn't work, but it doesn't work because PKK supporters continue to organize protests in Sweden. During the meeting, the ministry also discussed the delivery of F-16 warplanes and Ukraine's status in NATO, and that the ministry will meet face-to-face at the NATO summit in Vilnius, he said. Separately, Zelensky, who is in Poland to meet with Polish Foreign Minister Andrzej Duda, tweeted that he had a short but very important meeting with Duda about the next NATO conference. We agreed to work together to achieve the best outcome for Ukraine, wrote Zelensky. On July 7, Zelensky said that he wanted to see unity among NATO members and that Ukraine would take important steps towards eventual membership. President Joe Biden said that Kyiv is not yet ready for NATO membership and that Russia's war in Ukraine must end before the organization can invite the country to join. In an interview with CNN's Fareed Zakaria on Sunday, the president touched on several foreign issues ahead of his trip to Lithuania for the week-long 2023 NATO summit. One of these issues is Ukraine's willingness to join the anti-linkage campaign while continuing to fight against Russia. I don't think it's ready to join NATO, Biden said of Ukraine, adding that it is very important to have an alliance, as he sees that Russian President Vladimir Putin's intention is to divide the G30 countries. I don't think there was an agreement in NATO during the war on whether to include Ukraine in the NATO family, continued the president. For example, if you do, then, I mean what I said, we promise to take every inch of NATO territory. However, this is a commitment we all make. If the war continues, then we are all at war. If so, we are at war with Russia. To join NATO, all members of the Defense Alliance must agree that the country in question is ready to become part of the organization. In 2008, NATO leaders said that Ukraine would finally become a member, but it was even requested by the President of Ukraine. But there is no way. Biden said he had discussed NATO membership with Zelensky and told the Ukrainian president that the United States would continue to provide security and weapons after NATO membership was complete. The president told Zakaria, "I think we need to determine an appropriate path for Ukraine to qualify for NATO." He added that Putin rejected his demands before the United States. The United States promised not to accept Ukraine into NATO, citing the alliance's open policy. But I think it's too early to call for a vote because there are other things to be done, including democracy and some of these issues, said Biden, emphasizing that he should stop first. Accession process or peace treaty. Saturday, 500 days have passed since Russia launched an all-out war against Ukraine. Ukraine hopes to start soon, but faces great opposition from the country's small population, which is threatened by powerful forces, including NATO members. Province. Last week, the White House announced the USA. The U.S. will supply nuclear bombs to Ukraine. The move faced mixed opposition from Congress and could be subject to scrutiny at the NATO summit, where more than two-thirds of member states banned the use of weapons because it caused too many problems. Civilian casualties. Biden said sending the Defense Department-approved missiles to Zakaria was a difficult decision and that it takes some time to convince him to do it. But the U.S. government ultimately said that sending the bombs Russia used against Ukrainian civilians was necessary to help Ukraine strengthen its opposition. The president said the Ukrainians are running out of bullets. The United States is firing modern low-cost missiles. They're trying to cross the trenches and then stop the advance of the tanks. But it's not an easy decision. Biden says U.S. President Joe Biden said Ukraine is not ready. CNN reported that Russia's war in Ukraine is joining NATO. This agreement must be finalized before NATO can decide to add Kyiv to its ranks. In an interview with CNN's Fareed Zakaria ahead of a week-long trip to Europe, the U.S. president said it was too early to start the process of allowing Ukraine to join the joint venture during the war. "It is too early yet," Biden said, adding that the United States and NATO allies will continue to provide First President Volodymyr Zelensky and his army with the security and weapons they need. Space at this time during war, however, this is a commitment we all make. If war is still there, then we are all at war. If that is the case, the U.S. president added, we are at war with Russia. He said that he had discussed the issue at length with U.S. President Zelensky and told the president of Ukraine that the U.S. would continue to provide security. Biden said, "I think we have to get what we need. It's the way to be in line with NATO because of the common open policy," added Biden.